Hello and welcome to the Kielder Observatory podcast. This is Ian Brannan. As ever, I'm joined by Director of Astronomy at Kielder Observatory Dan Pye. And together we'll have a look at one or two things making the news from the universe, including the brightest object ever observed. We'll tell you about that and just how big it is in just a couple of moments' time. We're also joined by not one, but two CEOs. A change at the top on the way for Kielder Observatory. We'll speak to outgoing CEO Catherine Johns, who's been with the organisation since 2019, and incoming CEO Leigh Venus. And both will explain why the job is so special.
The chances of this galaxy existing, of this solar system existing, of this planet existing are so infinitesimally small. But we do exist. And therefore, if we do exist, there is a life to be lived. And I think that's the closest I can get to putting into words the sense of wonder and connection that people feel when they look at a dark sky.
I've always been compelled by the life-changing experiences that we can give people to be able to take on an iconic venue like Kielder Observatory, to be able to deliver that and to have the whole universe at my disposal to do that and to give people that experience was just too good an opportunity to pass up.
We'll hear from both Leigh and Catherine in the next part of the Kielder Observatory podcast. But first, we're going to spend a bit of time in the company of Director of Astronomy at Kielder, Dan Pye, to have a look at what's going on in the night sky, the stuff that you can see, things you need to look out for, and also some news from the world of space, because there has been one or two little discoveries and missions that we might want to talk about. Starting with the discovery, it's not really a discovery, but it is a big thing that they found in space, possibly one of the biggest things that's ever been discovered. People love stories of black holes, right? They're fascinating things, and this is a bit of a monster. I don't know if you've heard about this, Dan. It's the Quasar J0529-4351, which is a catchy title, but basically it is the brightest thing that they've ever found deep in space. It is a black hole, and it's the most luminous object ever observed. Now, they've known about this for quite some time, but finally somebody has managed to discover exactly where it is. And this is a very hungry black hole, the hungriest black hole of all, in fact. It's eating the equivalent of a sun every single day. It's basically eating a star. A star a day keeps the astronomer away. And this is a very hungry thing indeed. And as I say, it's a supermassive black hole, and it has quite an appetite, Dan.
It's quite a healthy appetite. Can I just say, by the way, we've suddenly turned into Doctor Who here at the observatory, what with two what's this, a bi-generation of CEOs or something like that have we got?
Yeah, regenerating, that's right, yeah. They go into the observatory, the door closes, the building shakes, and out comes a new one.
We've got two CEOs at once. It's definitely like an episode of Doctor Who, anyway. Yes, there's a big black hole, which is very, very hungry, eating a star a day. That's quite a healthy appetite, I would say, for a black hole. They're really interesting, the black holes in this scale. At these massive distances, they become really abstract and difficult to, I guess, think about what it might look like and how this functions. And with the great many things in space, this is all supported by a good bit of maths. So this particular black hole, though, is quite big. It's not the biggest one that we've seen. It's about 17 billion times larger than the sun, or 17 billion times more massive than the sun, which is very, very large. Imagine 17 billion suns being compressed into this little tiny infinite collapsing blob, and that's that black hole there. So yeah, that's quite an impressive appetite that it has, but just quite interesting actually, because if it's 11 billion light years away, which is what's suggested in this article here, those stars have formed very, very early. So I'm wondering, can we find out more about those stars that are being hoovered up by this black hole, and will that reveal any more details about those early formations of stars in the early universe? Because we still are a little bit unclear as to what happened during that initial stage of stellar formation all that time ago, when the universe started to become more transparent, or when it was large enough or far enough apart from each other that these things started to form. We're still a little bit unclear as to how that formation got started. So maybe it'll also include some information about how that happened and how that black hole got there in the first place as well. Because would it have formed from... See, I like a very simplistic theory, which I'm not sure is backed up by any astrophysics, because, of course, I am not an astrophysicist. But in my mind, the kind of structural progression of the universe goes, in my mind, as... or the universe was really close to each other. And then everything started to get further away. And then as it's got a bit further away and light started to travel through the universe, there was little pockets of it which were still a bit too close. And this is where those big stars would have started to form, those very first stars, massive, massive big stars that then became these supermassive black holes. And then all of the galaxies formed around these supermassive black holes, as we see them now as quasars, we call them, which are these feeding black holes like this one here. So yeah, I think I'm not sure if I reached any conclusion in that little ramble that happened just there, but yeah.
I don't think we can really comprehend the sheer size of this black hole. 17 billion times the size of the sun. I mean, for us, in equivalent terms, I don't know, that must be pretty much almost the size of the Milky Way, I would have thought. That's a big old object.
Yeah, 17 billion times larger than our sun. So this is a mega-sized thing. The biggest thing in the universe, or the biggest black hole in the universe, is a lot bigger than that, though. We think about 66 billion masses of the sun. So really, 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 really unimaginably huge thing. But remember, these things are just mass. So they're not necessarily 66 billion times the size of our sun, just the mass of our sun. And we were actually doing a little experiment yesterday in the observatory because a kid had asked this question about, well, how far would you be away from the sun if the sun was a black hole to get spaghettified? So did a quick little bit of arithmetic we did using the good old internet as a support engine for that. And we came to the conclusion that the sun, if to be a black hole, the sun would be about 3 kilometers in size. So the event horizon would be 3 kilometers in diameter. So you'd get 3 kilometers away from this theoretical infinite collapse center, and that's when you'd start to be spaghettified. Bearing in mind the sun is 1 million miles wide right now. So you'd have to really, really shrink all of that mass down to 3 kilometers or less than 3 kilometers to make that a black hole.
Yeah, I think it would be, by the time you got 3 kilometres away, it would still be quite hot first. I think that would be maybe your first issue, would it?
Yeah, I guess it would be, yeah. So when we get close to that black hole, we've got all of this accelerated material which is spinning around it in this region we call the ergosphere, which is a word I really quite like, actually, ergosphere. And things can actually increase in energy when you introduce them to this region as well. So yeah, very hot, very luminous as well. Things can start to glow very brightly. This one that's just been discovered, 500 trillion times the luminosity of our sun, 500 trillion times brighter than the sun. Imagine the amount of sunglasses you'd have to wear to look at that.
Yeah, you'd need all the shades from that guy on the beach that sells them all at once, or indeed a welder's mask. Something else that's been taking place, and people may have seen this or not, the Odysseus mission to put a lander on the moon. The first time the United States have been involved in something like this since the 1970s, of course. Now, it did hit a bit of a snag. It tripped over. It's on its side, they reckon, but it is at the intended landing site. And also Japan's moon lander as well has apparently come back to life. So quite a lot of activity on the moon again.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a really good, useful commodity is stuff like that for us, getting deeper into the solar system, being able to utilise some of this material as potential fuel to get us a little bit further away, because we use so much fuel when we leave our planet that if we could do that in a lower gravity environment to get into these deeper regions of our solar system, it would just be a much more efficient way of being able to do that. And because I mean, if you look at things like the Apollo mission, that was using the equivalent of a transatlantic flight per second in fuel as it was taking off from the floor there. So it's an incredible amount of fuel that we go through. So if we can create our own fuel by using the resources of the moon, then that's a useful thing. And of course, this was really useful for us assessing the future Artemis missions as well, and landing on the moon for those missions. So we send actual people back to the moon for constructing lunar bases. So all of this kind of stuff is now part of now instead of the future. The future is happening as we kind of see it, and this is really much a starting point to that. But also just a thing on water. We kind of, I get asked this quite a lot at the moment, and I don't know if it's because of the conversations that are happening about the moon and looking for water around the poles and H2O. And it seems to be a misconception that water is a rare commodity in the universe, when actually it really isn't. There's water in a lot of places. There's water in molecular clouds. There's water in our solar system, in various different parts of our solar system. There's slight chemical differences with some of the water. And one really interesting thing that came about recently from a recent piece of research looking at material from asteroids and grains of dirt in space, and thinking about how Earth was populated with the water that we have today, was that the theory around delivery of water via comet ice to Earth is not really a preferred theory anymore, because a lot of comets, when we look at them, they have this heavier version of water, as we may call it heavy water, which contains deuterium as opposed to just some basic H2O. In which case, if we have our planet populated with heavy water, why have we got the water that we have today? And recently, there was some research done on tiny little granules of dirt from space rock. And they all had this tiny, tiny, tiny little film of water on the surface. And the theory goes that because a lot of this rock contains oxygen attached to something else, that the hydrogen nuclei from the sun that's been ejected and traveling out through the solar system on the stellar wind or the solar wind hits the oxygen that's attached to whatever it might be in these dust grains, and it attaches itself to the oxygen, releasing the oxygen from whatever else it was attached to. So you end up with water being created by solar wind on little bits of dust and rock in our solar system. And we think asteroids are covered with this film of H2O on their surface as a result of this, something which the solar wind is creating, which I find absolutely incredible that's taking place, even still today, and being delivered here today.
Wow, that's is incredible. And something else, actually, the James Webb Space Telescope is something that we've talked about many times, and because it's always doing work and always having research carried out via it. They've just released something, I think, in the last day or two about supernova 1987A, which was relatively recent, really, an exploding star in the cosmos and relatively close, only 168,000 light years away. So just a hop and a skip, really, in intergalactic terms. But a star, largest satellite galaxy of the Milky Way, a star exploded. This happened when the star's core collapsed into a dense object and expelled all of the outer gas. And there's been a few mysteries about maybe what caused that. And the James Webb Space Telescope, using the infrared capabilities and a little bit of reenactment, of course, as well, have published a study in Science magazine describing how astronomers have worked out and peered behind the dust cloud that still remains where the star once was. And they found there a neutron star, a dense ball of matter about the size of a city, but containing the mass of 1 or 2 times that of the sun. So they've found this neutron star hiding behind it, and that's maybe given them a little bit of something to think about.
That's amazing. I love a neutron star. They're always a fun thing. They spin fast. Sometimes I wonder what it's or how quickly it's spinning. I wonder if they know that yet. I haven't read this yet. In fact, actually, today of recording this, tomorrow is the anniversary of this supernova erupting in 1987. So it's 24th of February 1987 that this went bang, did this supernova. But yeah, great that there's a little neutron star there. That's nice. Yeah, good. Neutron stars are very dense things. My favourite facts about a neutron star, and this one may be in a similar kind of ilk, is if you take a teaspoon of neutron star and you brought it back to Earth, it would weigh not only 10 million tons, but it would just shoot through the floor, and it would just keep going backwards and forwards through the planet, making a hole in the planet, which I think is quite a nice little
thought. Bad news if you're in Australia, if we dropped it here. Feel like a scene from, what do you call it, like Roadrunner or something like that, where Wile E. Coyote throws the anvil off a cliff and it just keeps going through the earth. It's like that. Okay, let's have a look at what the highlights are in the night sky as we head in towards March then, because spring is around the corner, and that brings a few things, doesn't it? It brings slightly lighter evenings, but still dark nights, later on into the evening. But we see the spring triangle. In fact, you might already be able to see it.
Yeah, the spring triangle? Which is the spring triangle? Is this something new?
The spring triangle, 3 bright stars from 3 separate constellations, all possible to view. Arcturus in Bootes, is it Spica in Virgo?
Mm-hmm.
And Denibola in Leo. Those are
really?
Those are the spring triangle.
I've never heard of the spring triangle. I know about the winter triangle and the summer triangle, but the spring triangle, and you want to meet. There's a nice stars as well. The Arcturus is a lovely red star, and Denibola is quite a nice star, and Spica's quite a nice star. And I always love it when Spica comes back, because that means that the bowl of Virgo is going to start to become visible. And you know what that means? It's the return of the hairy eyebrow galaxy. Yes.
Oh, yes. Well, regular listeners will be familiar with the hairy eyebrow galaxy, so it's good to bring it back. Great. There we go. Other things going on. Juno is at as an opposition. That might be sort of a bit of a trickier one to see, maybe for the advanced.
Yeah, I wouldn't be trying to spot that one. Yeah, that one's going to be a hard one. Mercury's at its greatest eastern elongation, though, which means you're going to be able to see it at its furthest distance from the sun. And this is going to be in the evening sky. So just before the sun sets in the westerly direction, just after the sun sets, for a little period of time, you'll see Mercury over on the horizon. And it can actually be quite bright, Mercury. It's lovely to see with a telescope as well, if you can get a telescope on it. Of course, make sure the sun has set first, because you don't want that stuff in your eye, because it hurts. But yes, Mercury is a nice little planet to look at. And sometimes it's crescented as well, because of course it's an inferior planet. It's further closer towards the sun. And so you get different shapes for Mercury. Sometimes it's a disk, and then sometimes it's a little crescent, just like the moon. So.
And if you want your best chance of doing stargazing, of course, well, the new moon is the 11th of March for your diaries. Full moon on the 25th of March. So good times to see it, and not so good, I suppose, if the moon's at its fullest at 7:00 in the morning, though. So it's not going to be full blazing, perhaps, depending. But still, the end of the month is when the moon's going to be its brightest, and around the 10th or the 11th. And should be clearer skies, all being well. And maybe we might start, we're sort of heading into, with the equinoxes, possibility of aurora conditions coming good again.
Yes, of course, all very excited this year for return of aurora equinox time. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The equinox is a good time to see the aurora, that's what I mean. As we get towards the equinox, we do see an increase in activity. And at this time, this year, where we pretty much are in our solar maximum now. I'm not 100% sure if it's been declared as that, but we're pretty much there, I think. And so, therefore, yes, more chance of stronger auroras that can get all the way down to us here in the northeast. But a great time to also go to places like Finland and Norway and Iceland and places like that, which our Director of Astrophotography is going to at the beginning of March. He's traveling to Iceland with hopes and dreams of imaging some incredible aurora from there, which I'm sure we'll share on our social media pages should he be successful. Of course, Iceland is quite a cloudy country, but he's there with some people who know the island well, and if there's some potential clear patches, they'll be chasing that around the island, up volcanoes, through lava pits, whatever it might cost, to try and get those images for us. So fingers crossed we get to see some of that.
Okay, look out for those. And of course, heading towards Easter at the end of March as well, and the school holidays will be on. And I guess good time to have a look and see if anything's available, if people fancy coming to the observatory and booking in on any of the sessions. And of course, kids' sessions coming up. It's the time of year where there's sort of no shortage of school holidays, perhaps it seems, where you've got Easter, and then we've got the spring bank holiday coming up very quickly. So those sessions for kids also bookable now too.
Loads of new events coming onto the calendar as well. We're packing out the rest of the year with events up until the end of August very soon. So all of those will be listed, possibly even by the time this podcast becomes available. But then from September onwards, we're working on that calendar as well. So there'll be plenty of events to book on the calendar, but they do book up fast, of course, around school holidays. Always very popular as well, especially the summer holidays. We tend to really book out of those very, very quickly. So yes, be aware of that. And we have a new event which is coming up soon as well, an event which we trialled last year and went incredibly well. So we've decided to continue to run it, which is Late Night Discovery. And this will be starting very, very soon. It's our latest time of night event. A great event to come and take part in.
Okay, so look out for details of that and get onto the website kielderobservatory.org for all the info, and we hope to be able to see you up at the observatory sometime soon.
And then in April, we've got total eclipse, and our Ellie is going to the United States with hopes and dreams of being able to photograph said eclipse. So fingers crossed we also get to see some of that come the month after.
Okay, I'll hold that thought. Maybe we can talk about that in the next episode then. Big solar eclipse, and then the idea is to try and bring some of it to you as well, I believe, through the various channels. So look out for that as we head towards April. Exciting times at Kielder Observatory. Well, let's hear from the very top table next then. Why have one CEO when you can have two? And we've got them both on the Kielder Observatory podcast next. This is the Kielder Observatory podcast. Now, in this next section, we're going to spend some time with those at the very top of Kielder Observatory's organisation. Kielder Observatory, of course, is an operating charity, as well as providing you with fantastic nights out in the wonderful surroundings of the observatory, out in the Northumberland Dark Sky Park. And we have some change to tell you about, because our Chief Executive, Catherine Johns, who's been with the organisation since 2019, is moving on to pastures new, and incoming is a new CEO by the name of Leigh Venus, and we're going to hear from them both in the next part of this podcast. First of all, though, to you, Catherine, as you look back on your time, and of course you've faced quite a lot over that period, not least navigating through a pandemic, which I'm sure is something that you didn't bank on having to face when you took the job. But looking back, I'm sure with an immense amount of pride of the things that you've achieved and the places that you've taken Kielder Observatory during your time, and what is a very unique role and a very unique job to have.
First of all, it's a privilege to be a CEO of any organisation, and that craft of leadership has been something that I've been practicing my entire career. I'm probably getting quite good at it at some point in the future. But I always remember that first. It is absolutely a privilege to lead any organisation, and the role is to support the team to do their job, to delight the customers and visitors. And I always took that view when I joined Kielder. And the team is the reason that I joined the organisation. And I remember I had my second interview up at the observatory, much like Leigh did. And it was a really, really foggy night. It was like being inside a fog globe. You could barely see the hand in front of your face. And these guys and these girls were just magicians, and they inspired people in a way that I had never really seen before. And that was the moment when it really clicked for me. And I thought, if they can do that on a night like this, where you cannot see anything, what can they do when it's bright, starry, crystal clear, and you've got a sky glittering with stars? And it was a group of people that I wanted to work for, and wanted to work with, and wanted to lead. So whatever difficulties of the past few years, and I'm sure we can come into that in a bit, whatever the difficulties, I never ever stopped believing in the team. I never stopped believing in the mission. I never doubted for a minute that we would survive COVID and the pandemic and all the other challenges like Storm Arwen that we've had. I never doubted that for a minute because of the people I met on that July night for my second interview.
And that, I think, is the big thing, isn't it? The experience as a whole. Yes, there's the wonderful stars. You can look through the telescopes, you can see amazing things, but there's also this educational element too, where people learn about what it is that they're seeing. If that's the aurora, they understand what it is they're seeing and why they're seeing it, or to do with meteor showers, for example. You know, what is a meteor? Where's it coming from? And this is all information, and these are skills that they can take with them onwards to wherever they may live in the world to look again and see it in their own surroundings.
Yeah, and very early on in my tenure, I realised that we were in the inspiration business, because I remember having a discussion at the board and they were saying, are we education or are we tourism or are we both? And I remember saying, no, we're in the inspiration business. That's what we do. We create a space where people can experience moments of hope and inspiration and wonder. And they take that moment with them. So the Kielder moment phrase actually emerged very early on in my leadership days. And we started, and that phrase has actually driven so much of the outreach and engagement work that we've done in the last 4.5 years, because everyone should feel entitled to experience that moment. And I think the fundamental driving force behind my tenure, my leadership, has been that no one should feel excluded from experiencing that Kielder moment. And when I joined, obviously the very remoteness of Kielder, it has to be where it has to be because of the protection of the dark skies. But the very remoteness is actually a barrier to participation and attending. So I was really lucky to inherit a fantastic product, if you like, with the observatory. It worked really well. People were doing their jobs incredibly well. As I said, they are absolute magicians at inspiring people. So I was really lucky there, and I could really focus my efforts on the outreach and the education and the engagement. So it's gone from, I would say, a fantastic observatory to a beacon for inspiration and engagement, because we've literally engaged with hundreds of thousands of students and community groups and teachers and prisoners and sanctuary seekers in the last 4.5 years. And that's what I'm really proud of, I think.
And that Kielder moment, as you call it, as well, has been on tour. Maybe the weather has not been overly favourable, or there's been a problem at Kielder where we've had weather issues and the observatory hasn't been able to open. The telescopes on nice clear nights have been out and about across the region, whether that's to Hexham or Exhibition Park or to Whitley Bay. took my family there to Whitley Bay one evening, and there's maybe 40 or 50 people in a car park queuing up to look through the telescopes and look at the night sky. And this is that bringing that moment to people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to attend, and it shows they're interested and they're able to get involved that way.
Yeah, and there's something very special about that moment, because I think one of the realizations that people have when they visit Kielder or they go to one of our pop-ups is how tiny we are. We're so tiny in the big scheme of things as humans, but that the logic to that is that the chances of this galaxy existing, of this solar system existing, of this planet existing, of humans existing, and of us as individuals, the chances of us existing as individuals are so infinitesimally small, but we do exist. And therefore, if we do exist, there is a life to be lived. And I think that's the closest I can get to putting into words the sense of wonder and connection that people feel when they look at a dark sky. The pity is that dark sky is a fundamental birthright for humans and any species on this planet, but it's been taken away by light pollution. So I think about 50 to 80% at any one point of the world's population is living under sky glow, under light pollution. So that experience of looking into a dark sky, which is full of stars, and feeling connected to the cosmos, that experience is actually being taken away from most people who live on this planet. So that's why Kielder Observatory's mission is so important.
And that mission now is handed on to a new CEO who joins us now. And I'd like to introduce to you Leigh Venus, who takes over at the helm of Kielder Observatory as the incoming CEO. Leigh, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Kielder Observatory. This is a unique job. It's not a job that comes up very, very often, but you are now the new CEO of Kielder Observatory. Tell us, what attracted you to this? Because it is a fairly unique position. Obviously, the observatory itself is out there, a very remote place. You're dealing with the universe, which you can't say for every job description. What was it that brought you here?
Yeah, it's just an incredible opportunity, and ironically enough, one of the leaving gifts from a previous job I had was a ticket for Kielder Observatory, and it was to be my first chance to go and experience it. I'd always heard about it, I'd known about it, I'd heard very good things, and I went up there, and I was privileged enough to have the best possible version of the experience that can happen up there. The sky was a blanket of stars. It was absolutely jaw-dropping. It made me feel completely insignificant, and it was an incredible experience to hear from the team, to see through the telescopes, and just to be truly awed by the cosmos and just by being up there. And then following that, I had another experience where I was completely blanketed in clouds, and I had the magicians, as Catherine calls them, give me a 5-star night, and it was absolutely incredible. So I've always loved the place, and I really just couldn't turn down the opportunity to join the organization. I've spent the last 15 or so years working in culture and heritage, and I've always been kind of compelled by the life-changing experiences that we can give people through whatever it is. So whether it's film or art or heritage, whatever it is, to be able to take on an iconic venue like Kielder Observatory, to be able to deliver that, and to have the whole kind of universe at my disposal to do that and to give people that experience was just too good an opportunity to pass up. And thankfully, I've came into a fantastic organization with a brilliant team, thanks to all the great work Catherine's done over the past few years. It's just an incredible place. I'm incredibly privileged to be a custodian of it, and there's just so much potential still to be tapped into.
I think one of the real unique things is that there's no two nights alike. The universe is ever moving, the world is ever turning, the weather is ever changing. Different people on different nights, different questions are asked. You've got different science communicators working on a particular evening. So no two evenings are ever going to be quite as identical, are they?
No, absolutely not. I think one of the great fun things that I've been able to indulge myself in since I've came here is getting up to the observatory and just sitting there with the public and really experiencing the offer and what we do for people. And like you say, it changes night by night. It changes depending on what the weather's like, what's in the sky. It changes across the year, as you'll know, depending on what's up there at whatever time of the year it is, whatever season it is. But the questions are the great thing as well. I was in a fantastic session just before Christmas where it was for children. It was one of the sessions we put on for children. And the questions there are the best ones. I think there's always something interesting when adults come in. I don't know if it's because it may be the first time that for many of us we've sat in a sort of almost classroomy situation and we've got a person in front of us asking us if we have any questions. And I think we get a bit constrained as adults. Somehow we put up all these little barriers in our minds. But children just have none of that. They absolutely have none of that. And they ask the best questions. And our team will always answer them as well. I remember last time I was there was this kid who was obsessed with the core temperatures of all of the planets. And one of our astronomers knew the core temperatures right up to Saturn, I think, but he didn't know the planets beyond that. So he promised this child he'd go away and research. And when everyone came back in the room after using the telescopes, he had the temperatures of these planets. And that kid went away knowing that. So yeah, I love it. The questions are really compelling. The kids' questions are often the best, and I think our astronomers up there love it. They love a good question, and they love having that chance to talk to the people who've spent the time to come up and see us.
Some of the questions that public come out with are amazing, and as you say, particularly kids. The kids come up with such advanced questions that I think sometimes just stump the finest astronomers. And my daughter's asked some questions about black holes, and we've had the experts on this podcast, and they've been stumped as well. And it just shows that some of the best questions can come from left field sometimes.
No, it's interesting as well what you said there about those people, these experts, not knowing the answers to the questions that were posed. I think there's something really interesting and inspiring that we can give to people, which is that it's okay to say I don't know, and that's the beginning of science. That's where it starts, and letting people know that it's good to not know. That's the start of the journey. And in terms of kids, like you say, we run late at night. It's not often the best time to get kids up there at midnight. But this is why the work that we do outside of the observatory is really important as well. As I speak, we've got our astronomers in Phoenix, in the middle of Newcastle city centre. They're getting children to learn about and draw auroras. They're looking at and touching rocks from space and bits of the moon and bits of Mars and all of that. So yeah, getting children interested in astronomy is a critical part of what we do, and encouraging those future astronomers as well, and working behind the scenes to create different opportunities that anyone can engage with across their life, from child to adult, to encourage them into astronomy, into professional study, whatever it may be. But we love engaging with the kids. Again, there's I think for me, particularly with my background, you can have hard days, you can have difficult times, you've got an organization to run, you've got to keep the lights on, you've got to keep everything moving, all of that. But there's just something incredible about seeing children engaging with the work in particular. I think that just it's incredibly inspiring for myself, and I think for the wider team as well.
Catherine, as you look back on your 4.5 years or so at Kielder Observatory, what are the memories that you take with you as the fondest and your proudest achievements in the time?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I've loved every minute of it, to be honest with you, even through the challenges and because of the challenges. We've forged a really strong team and a really strong organisation. So I'm always grateful for that. I think my favourite moments are that night when we reopened after the pandemic, and we had 16 people there because there was all social distancing in place. And it was our first night reopened, and the people started coming down the track towards the building from the main car park. And it was just like this. The astronomers were so unleashed that night, because they loved being in front of an audience, and that had been denied them for years almost. So that was an amazing night. That was a really, really emotional night. Everyone was there. We got everyone up to say we're all going to experience this together, this first night after a long time being closed. And I think we've forged some really strong partnerships with the North of Tyne Combined Authority, the Rees Foundation, Durham University, the Association of Science and Discovery Centres, and those partnerships have enabled us to do the big strategic work around reaching vulnerable prisoners in HMP Northumberland, working with excluded children, working with sanctuary seekers. Working with those partners has enabled us to test out new methods of how we actually work with and co-create content and approaches to astronomy and science that hadn't been done before. So I'm really proud of those things. And there was an amazing picture of the astronomers went to see the West End Refugee Service in the West End of Newcastle, and they did a session in their hall. And just to see all of that happening and go, yeah, we did that. We worked together and we got the money and we did that. And that is fundamentally changing lives. I'll always have that wherever I go. This summer, we had a poet in residence, Dan Simpson, and he was working with the composer Will Todd and a number of other creatives like Robbie Graham and Lee Mattison. And the work, and Chad, sounds by Chad, who did the production, the poetry they have produced is so, everyone who listens to it, they're in tears because it absolutely captures the essence of what Kielder is. And in its larger form, not just the observatory, but the forest and the lake and the sky and the landscape and the sound and the not sound. So I thoroughly recommend everyone listens to that because that is a beautiful piece of work. And that's Arts Council funded. So again, very, very grateful for their work. But there's so many. I could of course talk about when I saw Andromeda through a telescope or Saturn through a telescope. But the thing that matters to me, I think most, is that the team and I and the board have been on an incredible journey, and it's been a roller coaster, and I'm grateful for every minute of it.
Well, thank you for everything you've done at Kielder Observatory over the time, Catherine, and the support for this podcast as well, not least. Also, where are you heading now? Then you're leaving the tranquility of the universe and Kielder Forest behind. So, where's your next stop?
Yes, I'm now Executive Director for Dance City, which is a very different form of inspiration, but I am still absolutely in the inspiration business. And dance has been a passion of mine since I was a little girl. And I have been supporting many different dance companies in the Northeast for many years. And this role came up and I was kind of humming and hawing and going, I love Kielder Observatory, but this is a really good opportunity. And eventually I went for it and I thought, yes, the time is right for me to move on from Kielder. I think I've done my role here and they're about ready for a new leader. So the timing worked out really well. So, but it's a very different environment. Obviously, the built Dance City itself is in Newcastle. It's an urban centre. It's a very complex building with many, many different demands on it. And it's a very different proposition. So where Kielder is all beautifully silent and peaceful and reflective and contemplative, here, and you might be able to hear it in the background, here the building is always abuzz with activity. So at the moment we have a musical dance theatre camp for children because it's half term. And we have some degree students doing some work. We have a residency for professional artists going on. We've got the cafe open. We've got public classes going on. So it's a buzz with activity and very, very different forms of inspiration. But it's still that moment of connection that I'm always looking for. And I love going into the theatre here at Dance City and just being in that seat. And then just you can hear the buzz of the audience and then the lights go down and then there's that very magical moment. It's almost electric when you don't know quite what you're going to see, but you'll know that you'll probably be challenged, you'll be thinking, your thoughts will be provoked, you'll laugh, you'll be entertained, you'll feel. And that's what I love about dance and the performing arts. So again, it's a real privilege to be here too.
So Dance City is where you'll find Catherine Johns, the previous CEO and incoming CEO, Leigh Venus. I mean, you have the perfect name for this role, it has to be said, being in charge of an astronomical organisation such as this. But as we heard where Catherine's heading next, where have you been up to now?
Well, my background's a bit of a circuitous one. My degree is in genetics, Then I've had a bit of a strange career journey that landed me in Tyneside Cinema in Newcastle in 2009. So it's the country's last surviving, still operating, purpose-built newsreel theatre. It's a heritage site as well as a first-run cinema and art space. So I came in there in 2009 after they did a major relaunch. I hung around and we did a big capital project. We got a new gallery, a big bar cafe, and then following that, stayed in culture and heritage, but I moved into the museums world. So I went on to reopen and relaunch what was known as Beads World in Jarrow. We relaunched it as Jarrow Hall back in 2016. Stayed there and looked after the direction of the site and set up a master plan with some outside help to define the next decade of development for the place. And then up to last year, I was working for the RNLI, so the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, looking after heritage for them across the north. So this was at museums, but also at all of the lifeboat stations you can imagine. So if you drew a diagonal line from Whitby down to Salcombe on the south coast, that was kind of my patch, was more or less all of the stuff above that. So it was the north, but if you define north as in kind of north of France, that's what it was. And I was also, up until last year, chair of Fertile Ground. So that's a contemporary dance company based in the north, ironically enough, which has its office at Dance City, where Catherine now is. And I'm also trustee of the Vagina Museum in London. So an iconic kind of grassroots museum that's just got its new permanent home in Bethnal Green. So I was working on that last year with the team down there. At Kielder, it's big. It's an enormous opportunity. There's so much to do. And as CEO, it's everything from the day-to-day challenges that crop up to looking at kind of 2030 and beyond, an eye on the future, where we've been, where we're going, all of that. The core of it is that experience, that moment of inspiration, delivering that for everyone who's involved with us. So whether that's at the observatory or beyond, just getting as many people as we can interested in astronomy, giving them the access to opportunities in science, getting people positioned so they can progress in astronomy as a career. We touched on that. We've already got one of the most significant STEM schools outreach programs in the region. So we're doing great work with schools. So looking to expand on that and continue to develop it. The observatory itself is an interesting one. The building, it's as much an art piece as it is a functioning observatory, and it's coming up for being nearly 20 years old now. It's kind of far exceeded expectations. So it's had around 1,000 something guests in its first year, and it's now got over 15,000 annually. So we're working the building hard. So looking after the site, looking after the observatory and the other buildings on there, and getting them well maintained and equipped for the next 10, 20 years is a priority for me as well. And again, touching on everything that we've talked about so far, getting beyond our location. So we've done the work in prisons with HMP Northumberland. We've recently done an event in Alnwick Garden, which was absolutely incredible, sold out almost instantly, really well attended, really great opportunity for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access the observatory to come and see what we do. The work with the West End Refugee Service is ongoing, getting out on Leazes Park on nights where we can't get out at the observatory and just inviting people for free to come and look through telescopes and be inspired near the heart of the city. We'll continue doing that kind of thing. And then looking further ahead at opportunities beyond the physical as well. So looking at what we do with our digital offer and looking at new technologies as well. So, the wave of artificial intelligence is here. It's more than lapping up on our shore. So how does that impact what we do? How can it improve what we do? How can it enhance what we do? So I'll be looking at that. And new technologies as well. I was completely blown away by the launch of the Apple Vision Pro recently, and thinking about that as a piece of consumer tech that's going to be in nearly everyone's hands in about 5 years' time, and what can we be doing to work with an incredible piece of kit like that. And bigger picture, going back to the dark skies, there was this bit of research that came out, I think it was in January this year, saying that any child who's born this year, by the time they reach their 18th birthday, if the sky continues to lose its darkness at the rate it is, they'll experience less than half of the stars that are now visible to them. And it's terrifying, really, the devastating effect of light pollution on our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, on animals, on the environment. So really working as a provocateur and an advocate for improvement in that area and darkening our skies and working to do that. And then beyond that, the climate crisis as well, so playing our part in that. And I think it goes beyond just what we do on the site in terms of our operations and how we work and who we work with and how we operate and all of that. It goes back to that moment where somebody's confronted by the cosmos and the blanket of skies above them, and they really feel that insignificance and that smallness of this little bit of space dust that we all live on and the place we call home. And I think when we're facing these big global challenges, having as many people to feel that feeling and take that feeling away with them is a really important one for me. The more people can really feel the preciousness of the place we call home, the more we can, as an organization, have a chance to really affect lasting change, I think.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity, and looking forward to all that it brings for you as we head through this year and the years ahead. As we wrap this up then, Leigh, in fact, Catherine as well, but starting with you, Leigh, we've talked about the universe. You're called Leigh Venus. Can I ask you, what is your favourite object of the universe?
It's difficult because I've got a few, but the big one for me that links with the observatory in particular is Jupiter, because it was the first thing that I ever saw through a telescope. I've seen it in the night sky as the kind of glowing, very bright star it appears to be. But when I was first at Kielder Observatory, the first thing I saw through the telescope was Jupiter, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't tear my eyes away. It was absolutely stunning to see it as this thing that was just truly, really there. And I was seeing it with my own eyes. I could see the bands, the brown and white bands. I could see the 4 moons in this diagonal line. I can still vividly remember that. So that's a big one for me. And I've recently, thanks to one of our astronomers, gotten introduced to the naked eye double star formation of Mizar and Alcor. So it's these 2 stars very near each other in the sky, and some people can see them as 2 stars, and other people need help to see them, whether it's through binoculars or a telescope. And I'm one of these people who needs help. I can't see it with my eyes, which I think just means I'm getting old. But I've become obsessed with this little naked eye double. So it's in the Big Dipper, and one of our astronomers introduced me to that. So that's one of my favorites at the moment. I'm just finding out more about that.
And same question to you, Catherine. You must have witnessed and heard lots about the universe over the last 4.5 years. But for you, what's the special part of the night sky, in your opinion?
It's always going to be the Andromeda Galaxy, because it's our nearest galactic neighbour, and it's so far away. It's billions of light years away, and I've seen so many people at the observatory blown away just by that fact, and just trying to grasp the scale of the universe, that there are billions of galaxies and our closest one is still billions of light years away. So that's always going to be my favourite one, because it actually stands for what Kielder achieves on a nightly basis, I should say, is that moment of inspiration and connection.
Well, it's been fabulous talking to you both, and wish you all the best in your onward careers. For you, Catherine, now departing to head to Dance City, thanks for everything you've done for Kielder Observatory over the last 4.5 years. And to you, Leigh, we'll look forward to hearing more of you, no doubt, on this podcast over the coming months and years.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Ian. Great to speak to you.
And thanks to you for listening as well. Don't forget to keep up to date with everything that's happening at Kielder Observatory on our official website, kielderobservatory.org. All the information you need about what's happening in the night sky in any particular month, anything else that we've got to share with you, and of course all the details of the various events that are coming up at Kielder Observatory as well. And book your place on one of those sessions, and we hope to see you up at Kielder Observatory very soon. There's plenty available. Quite busy over the immediate few weeks at the time of releasing this for the first half of March, but there are some places left on some of the kids' events on weekends, and probably need to start thinking about the various bank holidays and Easter and stuff like that at the time of releasing this at the end of February. But there are some sessions still available over the course of Easter, and as we head through the rest of the upcoming months as well, I think you can book things up to the middle of June at the moment, but more events will be released imminently, so keep checking there, and we hope to see you at Kielder Observatory very soon. We'll be back with another episode of the Kielder Observatory podcast in the next month, and I think we're going to shine the spotlight on the aurora as we get to the spring equinox, and maybe it could be a good aurora hunting season. So more on that topic on the way in the next episode, but we'll catch you then on the Kielder Observatory podcast. Take care. See you soon.